They saw the line and they crossed it anyway. Disrespect is never random. It's calculated. A test. A quiet dare to see who you really are beneath the surface. Most people react with emotion. They argue, explain, beg for clarity. But Machiavelli would laugh at such weakness. Power doesn't flinch when insulted. It doesn't rush to defend itself. The strongest response to disrespect is not anger. It's control. Cold, silent, precise control. If they thought you were the easy one, it's time to teach them how wrong they were. The first time they disrespect you is the only moment that matters. Not because it's the worst thing they'll ever do, but because it's the moment they decide what you are. People don't trip into disrespect. It isn't clumsy or accidental. It's deliberate. A soft push disguised as a joke. A quick jab buried in a compliment. A delay in a reply just long enough to make you wonder. In that moment, they are watching your face, measuring your silence, weighing your self-respect. And most people fail this test because they're too desperate to be liked. They laugh it off. They explain. They ask why. But Machiavelli knew that every small insult is a chess move, not a mistake, but a setup. And your reaction tells them whether to play harder. The moment you ask, "Did you mean that?" you've already lost. You've shown your confusion. You've shown that their perception matters. But when you act like the jab didn't even register, not out of cluelessness, but confidence, the game shifts. The most dangerous people in the room are not the loud ones, not the ones who swing back immediately. It's the quiet observer, the one who saw everything, said nothing, and is now deciding what happens next. If you respond emotionally to their first disrespect, they'll feed on it. If you respond by ignoring it, they'll think you're weak. But if you let them believe they've won while inside, you've already started the shift. You win twice. Because now, they're playing by rules you haven't spoken out loud. Let them feel comfortable. Let them think you didn't notice. Meanwhile, you're taking notes. You're moving pieces. And when your power arrives, it won't look like revenge. It will look like evolution. That is the Machiavellian response to disrespect. Let them write your obituary while you're busy rewriting your future. Quietly, strategically, without mercy. The moment you react emotionally, they win. Not because your feelings aren't real, but because you handed them something priceless. Visibility. Machiavelli understood this centuries ago, that public emotion, especially in response to insult, is weakness dressed as honesty. Anger reveals. Sadness reveals. Even cold sarcasm is a mask they can read. And once they know where the wound is, they'll press it again. That is the game. Your reaction becomes their map. You may think you're standing up for yourself, but you're actually exposing yourself. Because emotion, no matter how righteous, can be predicted. And whatever can be predicted can be controlled. So they provoke you, lightly, casually, a glance, a laugh, a comment about your past or your worth. They want to see if you'll break character, if you'll flinch, if you'll step out of the stillness that makes you dangerous. And most people do. Most people rise too quickly. Their voice sharpens, their shoulders tense. They enter the trap with both feet. But power doesn't live in the heat of the moment. It lives in the pause, in the ability to feel everything and show nothing. The most Machiavellian thing you can do when someone disrespects you is become unreadable. Not passive, not fake, just impenetrable. Because when your face gives nothing away, they begin to doubt themselves. They wonder if you even noticed, if you care. And that uncertainty burns hotter than any insult you could throw back. It haunts them. And while they spiral, you stay still. You stay in control. You let their disrespect echo in a room where you do not speak. That silence becomes your weapon. Emotion is how they pull you into their frame. Stillness is how you flip it. When you do not chase the need to explain or retaliate, you turn yourself into something they can't understand. And what they can't understand, they cannot predict. What they cannot predict, they cannot own. You are not ice because you feel nothing. You are ice because you choose not to melt in front of them. This is the difference between dominance and desperation. Machiavelli did not teach us to become cold for the sake of cruelty, but to preserve power by refusing to waste it. Let them insult you. Let them mock what they think you are. Just don't let them see your reaction. Because the moment you show them what hurts, they'll never stop aiming there. And when they realize they can't find the target, they'll start to fear you instead. Disrespect rarely shows up screaming. It arrives with a grin. It hides inside compliments with thorns, inside questions that sound innocent, inside delays and disappearances that they'll later claim were accidents. But Machiavelli would say, ignore the tone, study the intent. Because the words are never the message, the timing is. Why now? Why in front of others? Why you? That's where the real information lives. Disrespect isn't just about how they see you, it's about how they want others to see you. Every slight is a move to shift the hierarchy. They don't have to drag you down completely. They just need to tilt the balance enough to place themselves slightly above you. A joke at your expense in a group setting isn't about humor. It's a public invitation to laugh at you instead of with you. A backhanded compliment isn't about kindness. It's a test. Will you correct them? Will you swallow it? Will you try to prove your worth? Every time you analyze only what was said, you miss the purpose of why it was said. That's how they keep you small. They want you stuck in the surface, arguing definitions, tone, phrasing, while the real damage happens underneath. That is the battlefield Machiavelli walked with ease. He never asked, did they mean it? He asked, what are they trying to shift? It's a different level of sight. One where the insult is not the problem, the strategy behind it is. You don't need to correct the words. You need to understand the frame. Are they undermining you? Are they turning the crowd? Are they baiting a reaction to make you look unstable, insecure, or too emotional? Once you see the frame, you stop reacting to the noise. You start rewriting the script. When they joke about your failure, respond with calm boredom, as if they're stuck in an old story. When they question your ability, respond like someone who doesn't feel the need to convince. When they try to embarrass you, say nothing and let the silence expose their insecurity instead. Every insult they throw is a mirror, not a wound. Don't fix the reflection, just study what it reveals about them. Because someone who needs to make you small is already terrified of your potential. They'll never admit it, but Machiavelli would. He knew that enemies are most honest when they're trying to hide something. And what they hide the hardest is the fear that you might be stronger than them. So stop asking what their words mean. Start asking what they fear. And then move accordingly, not with reaction, but with ruthless observation. The moment you explain yourself, you place yourself beneath them. Not because you are wrong, but because explanation is submission. It tells them that their misunderstanding of you deserves clarity. It tells them that their version of the story holds weight. Machiavelli would have never allowed that. To him, explanation is the language of the powerless. A prince does not explain, he acts. He decides. He moves forward, and if the people question him, he lets them wonder. Power does not beg to be understood. It thrives in mystery. When someone disrespects you and you feel the urge to explain to clear the air, to fix their perception, to smooth out the tension, understand this. The moment you speak to justify, you've already validated the insult. You've accepted the frame they built. Now you're defending your place inside it, and you will never win a war fought on their terms. Explanations feel good in the moment. They give you a sense of control. They make you believe you've restored balance. But what you've actually done is confirm their influence. You responded, which means they struck a nerve. And if they can reach your nerves, they can shape your behavior. True power requires discomfort. It requires letting people misunderstand you, underestimate you, and misrepresent you without rushing in to correct it. Not because you are passive, but because you are busy building something bigger than their opinion. Every time you hold your tongue, every time you walk away without offering a single word of defense, you become more dangerous. You let your actions do what your explanations never could. You let results speak, and those cannot be debated. People who demand explanations are rarely seeking the truth. They want a reaction. They want proof that you care, that you're shaken, that you're trying to repair what they casually tore down. Don't give them that satisfaction. Let the silence stand. Let the misunderstanding live. Let them tell whatever story they need to tell. You are not obligated to edit their fiction. If they think you're arrogant, let them. If they think you're weak, let them. If they think they've won, let them. Because the more sure they are of their version, the more shocked they'll be when your reality crashes through it. Machiavelli's cold advice is clear. Never explain, never justify, never defend. Not because you owe them cruelty, but because you owe yourself clarity. The moment you start explaining who you are is the moment you forget that power never needs permission to exist. It just is. Quiet, unbothered, unapologetic. Stillness is not weakness. It is not passivity. It is control in its most unnerving form. When someone disrespects you and you respond with stillness, you are not freezing. You are tightening the bowstring. Most people confuse movement with power. They think the louder voice wins, the faster reaction dominates, the bigger performance earns respect. But Machiavelli would tell you otherwise. Power is never rushed. It is not chaotic. It does not explain, and it certainly does not dance on command. Stillness is the refusal to perform. When they push you for a reaction, a look, a word, a twitch, and you give them none, you break their script. They expected you to defend, to protest, to fall into the trap they set. But instead, you become a mirror they cannot read. They will try again. They will raise the volume. They will poke harder. But when you remain still, not out of fear, but out of design, they begin to unravel. Because stillness exposes their desperation. When you do not respond, they are left alone with their performance. The crowd sees it. The room tilts. The one speaking too much becomes the one who looks insecure, and the one who stays still becomes the one who clearly knows something. That is how power flips without a word. It is not silence born from weakness. It is silence weaponized by intent. Stillness tells them, you are not moved by small games. You are not pulled into emotional chaos. You are not here to prove anything. You are here to observe and decide. Most people want control but lack the patience it demands. They flinch, they rush, they break the stillness before it does its work. But if you can hold it, if you can let the silence stretch just long enough, the balance will shift. The room will feel it. The disrespect will fold into discomfort, and you won't have said a thing. That is the art of stillness Machiavelli understood. The ability to create fear not by action, but by the absence of reaction. It is a cold power, a quiet violence, the kind that leaves people questioning themselves long after the moment ends. So when they try to provoke you, do not rise, do not fall, do not explain or lash out. Just be still. Let your lack of response become the loudest message in the room. Because when your stillness is intentional, it doesn't make you smaller, it makes you untouchable. Most people think emotional detachment is enough, that if they simply stop caring, they've taken back their power. But Machiavelli would disagree. Power is not just emotional distance, it is attention control. Disrespect thrives when you keep watching, when you monitor them, respond to them, talk about them, even in silence. They still own your focus, and where your attention goes, your energy follows. That's why coldness alone isn't enough. You must withdraw not just your feelings, but your gaze, your time, your presence, your witness. This is how you disappear without moving. They insult you, and you simply stop seeing them. Not in anger, in irrelevance. And nothing humiliates a disrespectful person more than realizing their target no longer looks back. When you stop rewarding them with your attention, their power collapses. Because they were never aiming to hurt you, they were aiming to be seen by you. They needed your reaction to exist. But now they're speaking into a void. That is the ultimate insult. Machiavelli wrote that the prince must sometimes deny the audience what it craves, not to punish, but to elevate himself. You do the same when you remove your gaze. Attention is currency. Stop paying people who insult your value. Let them speak, but do not listen. Let them try, but do not notice. You are not cold, you are unavailable. You are not cruel, you are busy. Your time is now too expensive to spend on anyone who has not earned it. This kind of withdrawal creates silence that screams. They'll notice your absence louder than they ever noticed your presence. And they will start to panic. Some will try harder. Louder insults, bolder jabs, new games. But you do not flinch. You have left the room they're performing in, even if your body still sits across from them. Eventually, they will exhaust themselves. That's when the power shifts. When they chase the gaze, you never return. And if they don't, good. It means you finally cleared the stage. Disrespect is a parasite. It cannot live without your attention. Once you stop feeding it, it starves. So don't just detach emotionally. Detach your focus. Train your eyes elsewhere. On things that grow you, on people who see you, on plans that demand your highest mind, not your lowest reaction. You are not here to correct them. You are here to rise beyond them. And sometimes, the most powerful move isn't to speak louder, it's to look away forever. When someone disrespects you, the average person thinks the solution is confrontation. To walk up, speak out, make a scene, reclaim dignity with volume. But Machiavelli would laugh at that kind of theatre. Confrontation is predictable. It flatters your ego, but it reveals your position. It shows that they've gotten to you. And worse, it puts the spotlight on your reaction instead of their insult. That's not power. That's performance. Machiavelli knew that if you want to win, you never fight where they expect you. You never play on the battlefield they chose. The better move is to change the entire terrain. You shift the frame, the setting, the access, until they're no longer standing on solid ground. That is how you respond to disrespect, with control, not chaos. If they disrespected you in public, don't argue there. Control the room by walking away. Let their words echo into absence. Make the crowd wonder why someone so composed would refuse to engage. If they attacked you behind your back, don't defend yourself. Control the narrative by becoming undeniable. Make the truth louder than any lie they spread. If they mocked your authority, don't fight to reclaim it. Control the structure, reposition yourself where their opinion no longer matters. The game is never about proving yourself right. It's about making them irrelevant. And that doesn't happen through confrontation. It happens through strategy. When you refuse to be baited, when you move in silence, when you shift the conditions without warning, you create confusion. Disrespect relies on knowing how you'll respond. Break that pattern, and their power crumbles. Machiavelli wrote that a wise ruler must not only defend his castle, but reshape its walls to make every future attack useless. Do the same. Redesign your access. Remove yourself from the stage they're performing on. Build new alliances. Direct attention away from their noise and toward your results. Every quiet move you make without announcing it becomes a form of control. You are not just avoiding the fight, you are deleting it. Not by retreat, but by outgrowing the context where they had reach. And when they realize you are no longer playing the same game, they lose all power. That is how you destroy disrespect, not by arguing louder, but by becoming unreachable. Control is not loud, it is not obvious. It is the quiet decision to move the ground beneath their feet while they're still rehearsing their next insult. Let them find out too late that the stage is gone. When someone disrespects you, they are assigning you a role, the one who is beneath them, the one who stays quiet, the one who keeps proving. Most people stay in that role because they don't realize it was handed to them. They think they're being polite. They think they're taking the high road. But Machiavelli would say that power does not come from holding your tongue, it comes from flipping the frame. You do not confront disrespect with desperation. You confront it by changing who is chasing who. That's how you reverse the dynamic. Slowly, subtly, without ever naming it out loud, you make them want your approval. You create tension not through confrontation, but through scarcity. You become colder, quieter, less available. You give less praise. You stop laughing at their jokes. You stop validating their presence. They start to feel the absence. They start to wonder. You haven't insulted them, and that's what makes it worse. Because now they're guessing. Now they're chasing a connection they thought they owned. And here is where power flips. When the person who mocked you is suddenly trying to be seen by you. That is the art of role reversal. You do not become aggressive, you become valuable. They thought you were beneath them, but now they need something from you. Your time, your respect, your silence, and you give none of it. Not because you're cruel, because you've remembered your worth. Machiavelli understood that a ruler does not demand respect, he creates desire. He makes others want his favor, his recognition, his protection. You do the same. Let your presence feel earned. Let your energy feel like a privilege. And those who once disrespected you will now fumble for your attention like beggars at a locked gate. But don't rush this. Do not overplay your strength. The shift must feel natural, quiet, inevitable. The more calm you are, the more confused they become. Because now the person they once laughed at is the person they watch. They wait for your nod, your reply, your acknowledgement, and when it doesn't come, the silence grows louder than any insult ever could. That is the lesson Machiavelli left behind. Never confront the game directly. Make them play by your rules without realizing they've already lost. Because true power is not about being above them, it's about making them forget they ever thought they were above you. Absence is not escape. It is a weapon. When someone disrespects you, your first instinct might be to correct them, confront them, or prove them wrong. But Machiavelli would tell you that the coldest punishment is not revenge, it is disappearance. Not vanishing in weakness, but retreating in silence so calculated it feels surgical. Strategic absence creates discomfort that no argument ever could. When you remove your presence from someone who once depended on it, your attention, your energy, your laughter, your witness, you create a vacuum. And the human mind hates vacuums. They will replay the last interaction over and over, trying to locate the moment they lost access. They'll ask questions in their own head. Did they notice what I said? Are they angry? Are they coming back? That spiral is your revenge. And the best part? You never lifted a hand. You never spoke a word. You just stopped showing up. You didn't block them. You didn't announce your exit. You simply removed the oxygen and let the silence do the work. That's the art of being missed. Most people try too hard to explain their distance. They want the other person to understand the pain, to feel guilty, to admit they were wrong. But that kind of clarity gives the other person closure. And closure is mercy. Machiavelli wasn't interested in mercy. He was interested in leverage. Let them wonder. Let them reach for a version of you that no longer exists. Because when your absence becomes more haunting than your presence ever was, you've won. Strategic absence says, I do not fight for space. I remove myself from places that insult my value. It says, I do not chase, I do not beg, I do not repeat myself. I vanish, and what I leave behind is not a message, it's a mirror. Let them sit with it. Let them stare at the empty chair. Let them notice the silence at the table where you once Saturday. Over time, that absence will erode their confidence. Because they expected a reaction. Instead, they got a disappearance. And now they're left to calculate what that means. That doubt will do more damage than any insult ever could. So walk away, but walk away with purpose. Not to hide, but to haunt. Not to escape, but to ascend. Because when you are missed in rooms you no longer enter, you've reached a level of power few ever understand. And the ones who once disrespected you, they'll understand it last. Disrespect is not always meant to break you. Sometimes it's meant to freeze you, to keep you small, stuck, doubting. They want you circling the same moment, the same insult, the same question. Why did they say that? But Machiavelli would never linger in someone else's frame. He'd use the moment as fuel, not a cage. When they try to humiliate you, you don't shrink, you sharpen. You do not rebuild your confidence through confrontation. You upgrade yourself in silence. You take the hit, you study it, and then you vanish into a kind of work they will never see coming. That's the real revenge. Becoming something they can no longer access, predict, or understand. While they're still talking about the old version of you, you are already somewhere else, harder to reach, impossible to reduce. Every moment they spend reliving the insult, you spend refining the blade. You build in private. You improve in shadows. You level up your posture, your craft, your control. You become colder, but not bitter, just immune. They expected you to fall apart, to react, to collapse under the weight of their judgment. But you give them nothing, not even proof that they reached you. What they called a weakness, you turn into a weapon. What they mocked becomes the very thing you master. That is how Machiavellian growth works. It does not argue, it transforms. And it does so without permission. They may never notice the shift. But one day, they'll speak your name and realize they no longer know who they're talking about. Because you upgraded so quietly, they didn't hear the door close. You do not need to post your progress, to announce your evolution, to rub your success in anyone's face. The power comes from the contrast who you were when they disrespected you and who you are when you return. Or don't. That's your choice. You owe them nothing, not even a final glance. Machiavelli said a ruler must not only grow stronger, but make it look effortless. Let your change feel like disappearance. Let your silence become distance. Let them realize too late that the person they once mocked has turned into someone they now admire, fear, or crave, but can no longer reach. That's the cold truth. You don't destroy disrespect by reacting to it. You destroy it by outgrowing its ability to define you, quietly, completely, without ever looking back. Disrespect often survives because of the role you were too polite to reject. They chose it for you, the agreeable one, the forgiving one, the one who lets it slide. And without realizing it, you performed the part. You didn't want conflict. You wanted peace. But Machiavelli would warn you, the longer you wear a role that diminishes you, the harder it becomes to destroy. Disrespect is not always loud, it's scripted. And they've written your lines. You're supposed to smile when they interrupt, laugh when they mock, stay quiet when they cross the line, because that's the version of you that's easiest to control. That's the version they trust to never challenge the balance. But you are not here to be trusted. You are here to be redefined. And that begins with burning the role they assigned you. Not with rage, not with a breakdown, but with a slow and deliberate refusal to continue the act. One day, you stop responding the way they expect. You stop laughing. You stop showing up. You stop filling in the space with the same predictable warmth. And without warning, they're left with someone unfamiliar. Someone they can't read. Someone they can't reduce. That's when the power shifts. Because people rely on patterns. They need consistency to keep their control alive. But now, you've broken the script. They don't know how to speak to you. They don't know which version will show up. That confusion becomes your armor. Machiavelli knew that unpredictability is power. When they no longer know what you'll tolerate, they step more carefully. They test less. They fear more. You don't need to announce the change. The most terrifying transformation is the one you never explain. Let them feel it. Let them search for the old version of you and come up empty. And if they ask what happened, say nothing. Just keep becoming the person you should have been before you accepted their limitations. Burn the role they cast you in. Walk out of the part mid-scene. Let the silence that follows be your first act of rebellion. And if they beg you to return to the version of you they could manage, do not look back. That person was created for their convenience, not your growth. You owe no loyalty to a role that kept you small. Machiavelli would remind you that survival is not enough. You must rule, and no one ever ruled from inside a costume. So take it off. Tear it apart. Let them meet the real you, and let that introduction ruin the story they thought they were writing. Some lines, once crossed, cannot be forgiven. Not because you are cruel, but because you are strategic. Machiavelli understood that mercy has limits, and beyond that justice must arrive, quietly, precisely, once. When someone disrespects you so deeply that it threatens your identity, your work, your name, you do not argue, you do not announce war. You make a single decision. This will not go unanswered. But revenge, when done wrong, turns you into them. When done right, it leaves no trace, only silence, and the smell of something scorched. You do not scream, you do not act in heat. You observe, you wait, you let them believe they got away with it. You let them keep talking, you let them enjoy the illusion. And when the moment comes, when their guard is down, when the room is watching, when they are most sure of themselves, you strike. But not out of anger, out of clarity. You do not insult them back. You take something from them, their influence, their access, their reputation, their comfort. And you do it with such precision, No one sees the blade until it's already gone through. This is the Machiavellian response to betrayal. Punishment without noise, consequence without warning. It doesn't have to be public. It just has to be final. The ones who learn slowly often need to learn harshly. And once they realize the door is closed, the stage is gone, and your silence wasn't surrender, it was the sound of the trap being set. They will understand who they were dealing with. You do not do this often. But when you do, it becomes a story they never forget. Because your kindness was real, and they mistook it for softness. Your patience was long, and they mistook it for permission. That mistake is theirs to carry. You simply decided that disrespect was no longer something to rise above, but something to cut out, cold and clean. Machiavelli wrote that vengeance must be dealt all at once, so that it does not linger. You deliver it like thunder, brief, devastating, and unrepeatable. Not to prove a point, to make sure the point never has to be made again. Because when they see what happens when you finally respond, they'll think twice before ever crossing you again. That is the law of surgical revenge. One cut, no explanation, and the echo lasts a lifetime. Power answers nothing. That's the final lesson. When they talk about you, insult you, twist the truth, do not respond. When they beg for your attention after years of disrespect, stay quiet. When they try to pull you back into the roles you've burned, the games you've ended, the war you've already won, remain still. Not because you are weak, but because you have surpassed the need to explain, confront, or correct. Machiavelli would say, the most feared man in the room is not the one who yells, it's the one who no longer needs to speak. Because silence, when held with authority, becomes untouchable. There will always be people who want to pull you into chaos, to drag you into arguments, to provoke a reaction they can use. And every time you rise to defend yourself, you lower yourself to their level. Let them speak. Let them speculate. Let them spin their stories into the air. You are not there. You are building, evolving, rising in rooms they no longer have access to. They want your reaction, because that's the last piece of control they think they have. Take that away, and you've ended the game. Because when you no longer respond, you become the ending they cannot rewrite. No apology, no final confrontation, no closure. You exit without a trace, and your absence becomes the punishment. Let them wonder. Let them explain your silence to themselves. Let them feel the full weight of being ignored by someone they once thought they controlled. You do not need revenge. You do not need validation. You only need distance, and in that space, your power grows. It becomes a story they tell in quiet rooms. It becomes a standard you never had to declare. The loudest power is the one that no longer participates. And the final act of dominance is not vengeance, it is transcendence. You're not cold, you're complete. If this resonated with you, if you're ready to stop chasing closure and start holding power, subscribe to Dark Blue Psychology. We speak for those who rule in silence.